Control what you can. Let go of what you can't. These words from Marcus Aurelius weren't just philosophical musings. They were a battle cry for taking charge of your life. Think about that for a moment. In a world that feels chaotic, where so much seems out of our hands, Stoicism doesn't teach surrender. It teaches strategy. It's not about passively accepting whatever comes your way. It's about sharpening your focus, directing your energy, and acting with unshakable intent. What if the real measure of power isn't how much you control the world around you, but how masterfully you command your own responses? That's the heart of Stoic action, turning every obstacle into fuel, every setback into a stepping stone. Most people misunderstand Stoicism as cold detachment, a stiff upper lip in the face of hardship. But here's the truth, it's the opposite. Stoicism is fire. It's the relentless drive to shape your destiny, not by waiting for the perfect conditions, but by forging them through disciplined, decisive action. Imagine standing at the edge of a storm, not cowering from the wind, but adjusting your sails with calm precision. That's the Stoic way, not avoiding life's chaos, but moving through it with unbreakable clarity. And the most empowering part, this isn't reserved for ancient philosophers or modern-day elites. It's a practice, a toolkit anyone can wield starting right now. So let's cut through the noise. This video isn't about abstract theories or dusty old texts. It's a blueprint for unstoppable action. We're diving into the raw, practical principles of Stoicism, the ones that transform hesitation into momentum, fear into focus, and dreams into reality. You'll walk away with more than inspiration. You'll have a battle-tested method for seizing control, the kind that works when the pressure's on and the stakes are high. Because here's what the Stoics knew: power isn't given, it's taken, and the time to take yours, it starts today. The Stoics had a razor-sharp way of cutting through life's noise, the dichotomy of control. Picture a line drawn in the sand on one side, everything that's up to you, your judgments, your actions, your reactions. On the other, everything that isn't, the weather, other people's opinions, traffic jams, yesterday's mistakes. Epictetus put it bluntly, some things are within our power while others are not. That simple distinction isn't just philosophy, it's a survival tool. Because here's what happens when we blur that line. We exhaust ourselves fighting battles we can't win, while neglecting the ground we actually stand on. Take workplace stress. You can't control a toxic coworker's behavior or last-minute deadlines from your boss, but you can control how you prepare, how you communicate, where you direct your attention. The moment you stop wasting mental energy on what's outside your circle of influence, something shifts. You're no longer reacting, you're choosing. That's the secret sauce of Stoic action. It turns victims into architects. Look around right now. What distractions keep tugging at your focus? The news cycle, social media comparisons, someone else's bad mood. Every time you hand over your mental real estate to what you can't change, you're surrendering power. But when you redirect that energy inward, to your discipline, your mindset, your next move, that's when real momentum begins. The Stoics weren't preaching passivity. They were handing you a scalpel to dissect chaos and extract agency. So ask yourself, where's your energy leaking today? And more importantly, what could you build if you plugged those gaps? Amor Fati, love your fate. It sounds radical, maybe even reckless at first glance. Why would anyone embrace hardship instead of resisting it? But this is where Stoicism reveals its genius. Nietzsche borrowed this concept from the Stoics, calling it the ultimate formula for human greatness. Not just accepting what happens, but loving it, because every obstacle, every setback is raw material for growth. Marcus Aurelius didn't just endure the chaos of leading Rome through wars and plagues, he leaned into it. His journals reveal a man who saw adversity as a whetstone, sharpening his wisdom and resolve. The impediment to action advances action, he wrote. What stands in the way becomes the way. Think about a time life blindsided you, a job loss, a rejection, a plan that crumbled. The instinct is to rage against it, to dwell on how things should have gone. But Amor Fati flips the script. What if that setback was exactly what you needed? Maybe the failed business taught you resilience you'd use later. Maybe the heartbreak clarified what you truly value. This isn't wishful thinking, it's tactical reframing. When you stop fighting reality and start working with it, you reclaim agency. Here's the paradox: acceptance isn't surrender, it's the launch pad for assertive action. Picture a sailor in a storm. Cursing the wind wastes energy, but adjusting the sails, that's how you move forward. The Stoics understood that resistance drains you, while Amor Fati fuels you. It's the difference between shouting at traffic and using the delay to listen to an audiobook that changes your perspective. One leaves you frustrated, the other leaves you better than you started. So ask yourself, what if the very things you're resisting right now are preparing you for something greater? How would your approach shift if you saw challenges as collaborators rather than enemies? Amor Fati isn't about enjoying pain. It's about recognizing that the obstacles in your path aren't roadblocks. They're the path, and the moment you stop wishing for a different reality is the moment you gain the power to transform the one you're in. What if you could disarm fear before it ever takes hold? That's the superpower of premeditatio malorum, the Stoic practice of negative visualization. Seneca called it rehearsing adversity in advance, not to dwell on doom, but to strip the unknown of its power. Imagine standing at the edge of a high dive. The more you obsess over the drop, the tighter your muscles lock. But what if you'd already visualized the plunge 100 times? The shock dissolves, your mind stays clear, your body moves. That's the magic of this practice. It turns hesitation into muscle memory. Seneca's letters reveal how he'd mentally walk through losing his wealth, his status, even his health, not as pessimism, but as preparation. By confronting these possibilities head-on, he robbed them of their sting. He who has anticipated the coming of troubles takes away their power when they arrive, he wrote. Think of it like a fire drill. No one practices evacuating because they want the building to burn. They do it so panic doesn't hijack their judgment when it matters most. Here's how to put this into action today. Pick a challenge you've been avoiding, a difficult conversation, a career risk, a personal hurdle. Close your eyes and play it out in vivid detail. Feel the discomfort, hear the objections, see yourself responding with calm precision. The first time it might unsettle you, but by the 5th or 10th mental run through, you'll notice something shifts. The scenario loses its fangs. You start spotting solutions you'd missed before. Anxiety thrives on ambiguity. Premeditatio malorum replaces it with clarity. Consider public speaking. Most people fixate on their fear of forgetting lines or facing blank stares. But what if you'd already visualized the mic cutting out? Or a tough question from the audience. Suddenly, those scenarios aren't threats, they're checkpoints you've already navigated in your mind. This isn't about expecting failure. It's about vaccinating yourself against surprise. The Stoics knew the obstacle you've rehearsed is the one you'll dismantle with precision. So ask yourself, what's the challenge you've been sidestepping because the what-ifs feel too overwhelming? Now flip the script. Those what-ifs are your training ground. Every time you mentally walk through them, you're not preparing to fail, you're preparing to act. And when the moment comes, you won't be facing the unknown. you'll be stepping into territory you've already mapped, armed with the ultimate advantage, a mind that's ready. Action isn't just movement, it's meaning in motion. The Stoics didn't measure productivity by how busy you are, but by how aligned your choices are with your deepest values. Marcus Aurelius scribbled in his journal each morning, not with grand ambitions, but with a razor-focused question: what kind of person do I intend to be today? Then he structured his actions around that answer. That's the discipline of Stoic action, cutting through the noise of impulse to act with purpose. Think about the difference between scrolling mindlessly when you're stressed versus choosing to meditate for 5 minutes. Both are actions, but one reinforces your agency, the other surrenders it. Modern life bombards us with distractions dressed as urgency. Notifications, gossip, endless to-do lists. They create the illusion of productivity while eroding intentionality. But here's the Stoic antidote. Pause before you act. Ask, does this align with who I'm choosing to become? Imagine two people at the gym. One goes through the motions, counting minutes until they can leave. The other focuses on form, breath, and incremental progress. The same activity becomes two entirely different experiences, one reactive, the other deliberate. Marcus Aurelius faced this daily as emperor. Court flatterers, political traps, endless demands, all could have pulled him into reactive mode. Instead, he anchored himself in virtuous action. Not what will people think, but what does wisdom require here? That shift transforms action from habit into habit building. Your morning routine isn't just about waking up early, it's a vote for the kind of person you're cultivating. The work email you draft isn't just a response, it's a reflection of your integrity. So let's make this practical. Grab a piece of paper and draw 2 columns, reactive and intentional. For one day, track your actions in each. Did you snap at a colleague because you were tired, or did you pause to respond with patience? Did you default to fast food for lunch, or did you nourish your body with purpose? The gap between those columns is where Stoic discipline lives. It's not about perfection, it's about awareness. Every time you catch yourself drifting into autopilot, you've just found an opportunity to reclaim agency. The Stoics knew small, intentional actions compound into an unshakable character. You aren't just doing things, you're building something, and the blueprint isn't out there in the chaos of the world. It's in the quiet moments when you choose to act, not out of habit but out of conviction. Epictetus, the former slave turned Stoic master, had a brilliant way of describing obstacles. The greater the difficulty, the more glory in surmounting it. He compared life's challenges to a wrestler's training. The resistance isn't there to break you, but to forge you. Think about that. A wrestler doesn't get stronger by practicing against air. It's the grip of an opponent that forces their muscles to adapt. The same principle applies to every hurdle you face. What if the very thing you're struggling against right now is the exact pressure needed to reveal your untapped strength? Take the story of Thomas Edison. When his lab burned to the ground in 1914, destroying years of irreplaceable work, he didn't collapse under the weight of the setback. He stood in the ashes and said, "All our mistakes are burned up, now we can start fresh." That's Stoic reframing in action. The fire wasn't just a disaster, it was a forced reset, a chance to rebuild without the baggage of past assumptions. Edison didn't just recover, he thrived, launching some of his most groundbreaking work in the years that followed. This mindset isn't reserved for history books. Modern entrepreneurs live it daily. Sarah Blakely, founder of Spanx, faced rejection after rejection when pitching her idea. Instead of seeing each no as a failure, she treated them as feedback sessions, honing her pitch until it was unstoppable. Every obstacle became data, every setback a lesson. That's the alchemy of Stoic thinking. It doesn't just help you endure difficulties, it teaches you to extract value from them. So here's the pivot point. The next time you hit a wall, ask not, "Why is this happening to me?" but, "What is this trying to teach me?" Maybe the project that fell apart was saving you from a dead-end path. Maybe the criticism that stung was highlighting a blind spot you needed to address. Even physical limitations can become catalysts. Think of Beethoven composing his greatest symphonies after going deaf, turning silence into a canvas for innovation. The obstacle isn't the enemy. The real barrier is the story we attach to it. A traffic jam isn't just wasted time. It's a chance to listen to that podcast you've been putting off. A failed relationship isn't just heartbreak, it's clarity on what you truly need in a partner. The Stoics didn't sugarcoat suffering, but they refused to let it dictate their trajectory. They knew the same wind that blows out a match fuels a wildfire. Your job isn't to avoid resistance, it's to channel it. Look at your life right now. What's one challenge you've been resisting? Now flip the script. How could this very obstacle be the leverage point for your next breakthrough? The answer won't just change your perspective, it might just change your life. Seneca once warned, "While we waste our time hesitating and postponing, life speeds by." That cutting observation exposes the hidden cost of indecision. Every moment spent wavering is a moment stolen from your potential. Stoicism doesn't just tolerate decisiveness, it demands it. Think of a ship's captain in stormy seas. Hesitation isn't caution, it's danger. The same applies to your choices. The Stoics saw indecision as a form of self-betrayal, a refusal to honor your own agency. When you delay acting on what you know is right, you're not avoiding consequences, you're multiplying them. Take the toxic relationship example. Every day you stay tethered to what drains you, you're not just postponing a breakup, you're eroding your self-respect, your energy, your capacity to welcome something better. Seneca called this suffering in advance, enduring the agony of anticipation rather than the temporary discomfort of decisive action. Analysis paralysis isn't thoroughness, it's fear dressed as diligence. The Stoic alternative: clarity, not certainty, because certainty is a myth, but the clarity to say, "This no longer serves me," and the courage to act on it. Marcus Aurelius faced this daily as emperor. Imagine the weight of choices affecting millions, yet his journals reveal a man who trusted his trained judgment. He wrote, "Don't behave as if you'll live 10,000 years. That urgency wasn't reckless, it was liberating. It's the difference between staring at a cliff's edge and finally leaping, not because you've eliminated all risk, but because you've weighed what matters and refused to let fear veto your progress." Modern psychology backs this up. Studies show that swift decision makers report higher life satisfaction, not because they're always right, but because they trust their ability to course correct. Like a Stoic, they treat mistakes as feedback, not failure. Consider a CEO shutting down a failing project. The data's clear, the team's exhausted, yet the temptation to delay just a little longer is fierce. But decisive action, however painful, frees resources for what actually works. So here's the challenge: what decision have you been circling like a wary predator? A career change, a difficult conversation, ending a habit that's outlived its purpose. Write it down. Now apply the Stoic test. If not now, when? Not when conditions are perfect. They never will be. But when you've mustered the resolve to stop negotiating with your own growth. The moment you choose, you reclaim something precious: your time, your focus, your life. Because as Seneca knew, the price of indecision isn't just delay. It's the life you could have lived. Your inner critic isn't just a voice, it's a saboteur. Marcus Aurelius knew this well. Even as emperor, he wrote private reminders to himself. Be tolerant with others and strict with yourself, but not too strict. That balance is key. Stoicism doesn't demand perfection, it demands progress. Yet so many of us let self-doubt paralyze us, waiting for some mythical moment when we'll finally feel ready. Here's the hard truth: that day never comes. Action isn't the result of confidence, it's the source of it. Consider how overthinking works. It's like revving an engine while keeping the car in park. You burn energy without moving forward. The Stoics called this the paralysis of analysis. Epictetus warned that waiting for flawless conditions is just another form of procrastination. Want proof? Think of the last time you hesitated maybe to speak up in a meeting or launch a project. What stopped you? Likely not logic, but a story you told yourself: I'm not qualified. They'll judge me. What if I fail? Those aren't facts. They're fictions your inner critic concocts to keep you small. Journaling was the Stoic weapon against this. Marcus Aurelius didn't just ponder his thoughts, he interrogated them. When self-doubt whispered, "You're not fit to lead Rome," he'd write back, "Then what is my alternative? To shrink from duty because I fear falling short." He didn't argue with the critic, he acknowledged it, then redirected its energy. Try this. Next time your inner voice says you can't, ask two questions. Says who? And what's the cost of believing that? You'll often find the answers evaporate under scrutiny. Modern psychology confirms this. Studies show that writing down negative thoughts reduces their intensity. It's why cognitive behavioral therapy mirrors Stoic journaling. When you externalize self-doubt, you rob it of power. Imagine holding a snowball, clenched in your fist. It melts from the heat of your grip. That's what happens when you expose destructive thoughts to the light of reason. So here's the challenge. What untrue narrative about yourself have you accepted as fact? That you're not disciplined enough to start that business, not articulate enough to ask for the raise. The Stoics would call this out for what it is: a self-imposed limitation. Your mind is a garden. Negative thoughts are weeds. You wouldn't let weeds choke your plants. Why let doubts choke your potential? Silencing the critic doesn't mean ignoring flaws. It means refusing to let imperfections veto your progress. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire while battling chronic illness and political betrayals. His journals aren't filled with self-pity, they're filled with action plans. That's the Stoic secret. Self-compassion isn't about going easy on yourself. It's about being honest enough to admit your limits and bold enough to push past them anyway. The next time hesitation creeps in, remember, courage isn't the absence of fear. It's the determination that what you're building matters more than the voice telling you to quit. Write that down, then get to work. The Stoics didn't just value action, they demanded virtuous action. Wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance weren't abstract ideals to them. They were the four pillars holding up every assertive, intentional choice. Think of it like a compass. You could charge ahead with brute force, but without these virtues guiding you, you're just wandering. Take Cato the Younger, the Roman senator who became legendary for his unyielding integrity. When Julius Caesar marched on Rome, others switched sides out of fear or opportunism. Not Cato. He stood his ground not for fame or power, but because justice demanded it. His defiance wasn't reckless, it was calculated, rooted in a deep alignment with virtue. That's the essence of Stoic assertiveness, power tempered by principle. Let's break it down. Wisdom isn't just knowledge, it's discernment. It's the ability to ask, is this action necessary? Is it effective? Before speaking up in a heated meeting, wisdom pauses to consider timing and impact. Courage isn't the absence of fear, it's the resolve to act despite it. Imagine finally setting boundaries with a toxic relative. Your voice might shake, but you speak anyway. Justice extends beyond laws. It's about fairness to others and yourself. Negotiating a raise isn't greed if you're valuing your contributions fairly. And temperance, That's the restraint to know when not to act, like withholding a cutting remark when provoked. Modern life tests these virtues daily. A coworker takes credit for your idea. Wisdom assesses whether confrontation serves a purpose. Courage steps forward if silence enables injustice. Justice demands credit where it's due, and temperance ensures you address it professionally, not petulantly. Cato understood this interplay. He didn't oppose Caesar out of stubbornness. He did it because compromising his principles would have eroded his integrity. That's the litmus test. Does this choice make me more or less the person I aspire to be? Here's where it gets practical. Your next big decision, whether to leave a job, end a relationship, or invest in yourself, won't come with a manual. But it can be filtered through these virtues. Wisdom asks, what's the long-term impact? Courage whispers, what's scarier, doing it or regretting you didn't? Justice challenges, does this honor my values and respect others? Temperance reminds, is this proportional or am I overcorrecting? Cato's legacy isn't just his defiance, it's his consistency. He didn't preach virtue one day and betray it the next. That's the real power of Stoic assertiveness, actions so aligned with principle that they become undeniable. No posturing, no second-guessing, just motion fueled by conviction. So look at the crossroads you're facing now. How would wisdom weigh in? Where does courage need to rise? What would justice look like here? And temperance, what's it guarding you against? The answers aren't just guidelines. They're your leverage, because virtue isn't a constraint. It's the foundation of unstoppable action. True confidence isn't about being the loudest in the room, it's about being the most grounded. The Stoics drew a razor-sharp distinction between self-assurance and arrogance. One comes from deep alignment with reason, the other from fragile ego. Epictetus put it bluntly, if you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. That's the paradox of Stoic confidence. It doesn't need applause because it's rooted in something unshakable, the knowledge that you're playing your part in the grand scheme. Nothing more, nothing less. Consider two leaders. The first dominates conversations, name-drops accomplishments, and bristles at criticism. The second listens intently, admits gaps in knowledge, and focuses on collective progress. Which one commands real respect? Armenia's king, Alexander the Great, reportedly kept a copy of Homer's Iliad under his pillow, not as a trophy, but as a reminder that even conquerors are students of life. That's Stoic humility in action, confidence that's secure enough to acknowledge limits. The difference lies in where you source your validation. Arrogance clings to external praise like a life raft. When the applause fades, so does the facade. Stoic assurance, though, it's built inward. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." That urgency isn't morbid, it's liberating. When you stop performing for an audience and start living by principle, ego melts away. Think about your own life. Where do you subtly seek approval that undermines your authenticity? Social media likes, status symbols, the need to always be right in arguments. Epictetus warned, it is impossible to learn that which you think you already know. Real confidence thrives in curiosity, not posturing. A surgeon doesn't boast about steady hands, they focus on the incision. A teacher doesn't flaunt knowledge, they ignite it in others. Here's the litmus test. Next time you feel the urge to prove yourself, pause. Ask, is this action coming from alignment with my values or from fear of being overlooked? The answer will reveal whether you're building confidence or propping up ego, because here's what the Stoics knew. The quieter your need for validation, the louder your impact becomes. Growth doesn't whisper from the safety of familiar routines. It shouts from the edges of discomfort. The Stoics didn't just tolerate hardship, they courted it. Seneca famously slept on hard beds and wore thin cloaks in winter, not out of masochism, but to remind himself, "I can endure more than I think." That deliberate confrontation with discomfort wasn't about suffering, it was about liberation. By voluntarily stepping into challenges, he shattered the illusion that ease equals control. Modern science backs this up. Athletes use ice baths to speed recovery. Entrepreneurs pitch ideas before they feel ready. The principle is universal. The things you avoid hold the keys to your evolution. Take cold showers, a practice embraced by everyone from ancient Spartans to modern biohackers. That initial shock of icy water isn't just a test of willpower, it's a masterclass in mental reframing. Your body screams to retreat, but when you stay, you prove something profound. Discomfort isn't an emergency. It's data. Public speaking works the same way. The trembling hands, the dry mouth, they're not signs you're failing. They're proof you're stretching. The Stoics called this voluntary hardship, and its power lies in repetition. Each time you willingly face what unsettles you, you expand your threshold for adversity. Now, zoom out. What comfort are you gripping like a lifeline? The snooze button that steals your mornings, the avoidance of tough conversations that leaves resentments festering. Comfort zones aren't just physical, they're psychological. Every time you default to scrolling instead of creating, or silence instead of truth-telling, you're trading growth for temporary relief. Seneca warned, difficulty comes from our lack of confidence in what we can bear. But here's the twist, you don't build confidence before the challenge. You discover it through the challenge. Consider the butterfly. Its struggle to emerge from the cocoon isn't a flaw in nature. It's the mechanism that strengthens its wings. Remove the struggle and the butterfly dies. Your growth follows the same law. The job interview you dread, it's forging your ability to articulate value. The workout you skip, it's robbing you of resilience you'll need later. The Stoics didn't wait for life to force discomfort upon them. They sought it out like blacksmiths tempering steel. So here's the invitation. Pick one comfort you've been protecting and disrupt it this week. If you habitually avoid conflict, initiate a difficult conversation. If you cling to routine, take a new route to work. The goal isn't to punish yourself, it's to reclaim agency over your own evolution, because the secret the Stoics knew. The more you willingly face small discomforts, the less power the big ones hold, and suddenly, what once terrified you becomes the very thing that makes you unstoppable. Marcus Aurelius scribbled in his journal, "Concentrate every minute on doing what's in front of you with precise and genuine seriousness." That simple command cuts through centuries of distraction to deliver a Stoic masterclass in presence. Here's the radical truth most productivity hacks miss. Action isn't just about doing more, it's about being fully here. Think about the last time you tried to multitask. Maybe you were drafting an email during a meeting or scrolling news while listening to a friend. How much of that work or conversation actually landed? The Stoics knew something modern neuroscience now confirms. Divided attention means diluted results. Every time you split your focus, you're not just losing efficiency, you're surrendering the power to act with intention. Consider a surgeon in the operating room. There's no checking notifications between sutures, no mental rehearsing of tomorrow's presentation while making an incision. Life or death stakes demand absolute presence. Now, your daily tasks might not carry that weight, but the principle holds. A chef fully engaged in chopping vegetables notices the perfect texture, the subtle aromas, details that elevate a meal from good to extraordinary. That's Stoic mindfulness in action, treating every task, however small, as worthy of your whole attention. When Marcus Aurelius said, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be." Be one, he wasn't preaching perfection. He was demanding engagement, the kind that turns philosophy into lived experience. The modern world thrives on distraction. We mistake busyness for productivity, mistaking the adrenaline of constant switching for progress. But here's what the Stoics understood. Real power lies in the space between stimulus and response. When you're fully present, you spot opportunities others miss. A tense negotiation becomes a chance to listen deeply, not just react. A mundane commute transforms into reflection time that sparks your next breakthrough. Even routine chores, folding laundry, washing dishes, can become meditative practices that ground you in the now. So here's the challenge. What mental clutter keeps pulling you away from the present moment? Is it replaying yesterday's awkward conversation or fretting over next month's deadlines? Picture your mind as a spotlight. Every time it drifts to the past or future, it dims your ability to act decisively right now. The Stoic remedy: anchor yourself in the physical. Feel the pen in your hand as you write. Notice your breath before you speak. Taste your coffee instead of gulping it between emails. Presence isn't passive, it's the ultimate act of control. Because when you're fully here, you're no longer at the mercy of what was or what might be. You're free to do what only you can do, act right now with clarity and purpose. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire, but his journals reveal a man obsessed with the granular, the quality of his thoughts in a single moment, the integrity of his next decision. That's the Stoic secret. Greatness isn't built in grand gestures, but in the sum of fully inhabited seconds. Your most powerful move isn't waiting for inspiration or ideal conditions. It's showing up completely for whatever's in front of you, because the future you're chasing, it's being built by the version of you that's brave enough to be here now. Failure isn't the opposite of success, it's the curriculum. Musonius Rufus, the Stoic teacher who endured exile with unwavering resolve, put it plainly: just as physical exercise strengthens the body, so too does adversity strengthen the mind. That's the Stoic Reframe hiding in plain sight. Every setback isn't a stop sign, but a diagnostic tool. Think of a pilot reviewing flight data after turbulence. They're not obsessing over the bumpy moments, they're extracting lessons to refine the next journey. Your failures work the same way. They're not proof you're off course, they're the coordinates helping you recalibrate. Take Thomas Edison's 10,000 attempts to invent the light bulb. Most remember his famous line, "I haven't failed, I've found 10,000 ways that won't work." But the Stoic brilliance lies in what came next. Each failure wasn't a dead end, it was a data point. Too much current, try thinner filament, burn out too fast. Adjust the vacuum. Edison didn't just persist, he iterated. That's the feedback loop Stoicism champions: action, analysis, adjustment. No emotional drama, just relentless refinement. Now apply that to your last major setback, the project that flopped, the relationship that unraveled. What if you treated those not as wounds to lick, but as blueprints to study? A Stoic would ask, what did this reveal about my preparation, my assumptions, my boundaries? Musonius Rufus taught that difficulty strips away illusions, forcing us to confront what really works. Like a blacksmith's hammer, failure doesn't destroy, it shapes. Consider J.K. Rowling's 12 rejections before Harry Potter found a publisher. Those weren't just obstacles, they were invitations to hone her pitch, tighten her chapters, and clarify her vision. By the 13th try, she wasn't submitting the same manuscript, she was offering a refined product. That's the alchemy of Stoic resilience, transforming rejection into redirection. So here's the pivot, your last failure, that thing that still stings. What if it wasn't a verdict but a workshop, the missed promotion that highlighted skills to develop? The burnout that exposed unsustainable habits, even the harsh criticism that, when stripped of its delivery, contained a kernel of truth worth examining. The Stoics didn't avoid failure, they mined it, because buried in every stumble is a lesson waiting to be excavated, not "why did this happen to me?" but "what is this preparing me for?" Musonius Rufus knew, comfort teaches nothing. It's the friction points that polish us. So grab a notebook and revisit that setback you've been avoiding. List 3 concrete lessons it taught you, not vague platitudes, but actionable insights. Then ask the ultimate Stoic question: how will I act differently now? That's when failure stops being something you survive and starts being something you wield. Assertiveness is not a battering ram, it's a scalpel. The Stoics mastered this delicate balance, standing firm in your convictions while leaving room for compassion. Hierarchals, the Stoic philosopher, visualized this as concentric circles. At the center, you, then family, friends, community, humanity. His lesson: we're all connected, but responsibility radiates outward from the core. You can't pour from an empty cup. That's why Stoic assertiveness starts with self-respect, not selfishness. Picture a tree, its roots anchored deep so its branches can offer shade. No one accuses the tree of arrogance for refusing to uproot itself. Your boundaries work the same way. Take a workplace scenario. A colleague repeatedly dumps last-minute tasks on your desk. Aggression might look like snapping. Do your own work. Passivity might mean silent resentment, but Stoic assertiveness, it's calm, clear, and unapologetic. I can't take this on today. My current projects need full attention. Let's discuss deadlines earlier next time. No blame, no guilt, just a boundary that honors your time while leaving the door open for collaboration. Hierarchals would nod at this approach. His circles remind us that healthy relationships require reciprocity. If you're always saying yes out of obligation, you're not being kind, you're enabling imbalance. Marcus Aurelius modeled this as emperor. He could have demanded blind obedience, but his letters reveal a leader who listened, debated, then decided. Firmness without tyranny. Now, where does guilt creep in for you? Maybe it's turning down a friend's request when you're stretched thin, or voicing a dissenting opinion in a group. Here's the Stoic reframe: withholding your truth isn't kindness, it's deprivation. The world needs your perspective, delivered with respect. Epictetus trained his students to speak plainly, not to dominate but to serve truth. Try this exercise today. Script a conversation where you practice assertive grace. It could be as simple as, "I appreciate you thinking of me, but I need to decline." No over-explaining, no apology for existing, just clarity wrapped in civility. The more you exercise this muscle, the more natural it becomes, because Stoic strength isn't measured by how much you endure, it's measured by how wisely you choose what deserves your energy. Where's one area you've hesitated to set boundaries, fearing you'd seem harsh? Now flip the script. What if honoring your limits isn't just good for you, it's a gift to others, showing them how to do the same? That's the ripple effect of virtuous assertiveness. It doesn't build walls, it models how bridges are meant to be crossed, with mutual respect. Zeno, the founder of Stoicism, once compared personal growth to a flame, small at first, but fed by steady effort. It grows until it becomes an unstoppable force. That's the power of incremental action. Most people wait for grand gestures or perfect conditions to change their lives, but the Stoics knew better. Transformation doesn't happen in a single leap. It's the sum of daily, deliberate choices. Think of a snowball rolling downhill. At first, it's just a handful of flakes, but with each turn, it gathers mass and speed until it's unstoppable. Your habits work the same way. The morning page you write, the 5 minutes of meditation, the single healthy meal, none feel monumental in the moment, but compounded over time, they reshape your trajectory. Marcus Aurelius didn't become a legendary leader by waiting for inspiration. He started his days with journaling, not to craft profound insights, but to align his mind with purpose. One sentence at a time, one reflection at a time. The Stoics called this the discipline of small things, the practice of treating minor actions as sacred because they're the bricks that build character. A sculptor doesn't attack a block of marble with wild strokes. They make precise, patient chips. Likewise, your life isn't shaped by occasional bursts of effort, but by the rituals you repeat when no one's watching. Consider the micro-habit of evening reflection. Just 2 minutes reviewing the day. Where did I act with courage? Where did I let fear dictate my choices? Not to judge, but to learn. Over weeks, those minutes add up to something extraordinary: self-awareness that sharpens your decisions like a whetstone on a blade. Or take physical exercise. The Stoics didn't train for vanity, they trained for resilience. One push-up today might seem trivial, but one becomes 10, then 50. The body adapts, the mind follows. Soon, what was once impossible feels inevitable. Here's the critical shift. Stoicism teaches us to fall in love with the process, not just the outcome. When you focus solely on the distant mountain peak, every step feels inadequate. But when you embrace the rhythm of walking, the crunch of gravel underfoot, the steady beat of your breath, the journey itself becomes the reward. That's how small actions build unstoppable momentum. They're not just means to an end, they're the daily practice of becoming someone who can reach that end. So ask yourself, what's one tiny action you can take today that your future self will thank you for? Maybe it's pausing before reacting to a provocation, choosing patience over irritation. Maybe it's writing down one goal instead of letting it swirl in your mind. The key isn't scale, it's consistency, because the flame Zeno described doesn't ask how far it has to go. It just keeps burning brighter each day until it lights up the sky. Epictetus cut to the heart of our obsession with approval with one piercing question. If someone told you that a certain person spoke ill of you, would you defend yourself against their words? Then why worry about the attack itself? That's the Stoics' liberation, recognizing that others' opinions hold no power unless you grant it. Think about the last time you hesitated to speak your truth because someone might disapprove. That moment wasn't just hesitation, it was a trade. You swapped a piece of your authenticity for the illusion of control over how others see you. The Stoics called this transaction the costliest of all. People-pleasing isn't kindness, it's camouflage. It's the armor we wear hoping to avoid conflict, but the weight of it slowly crushes our spirit. Contrast that with the artist who paints not for galleries or accolades, but because creation itself is the reward. Or the entrepreneur who launches an unconventional idea despite the skeptics, because their conviction outweighs the noise. Authentic action doesn't ignore feedback. It simply refuses to let applause or hisses dictate direction. Marcus Aurelius faced this daily as emperor. Rome's senators whispered, the crowds demanded spectacle, yet his journals reveal a man who measured himself against one standard. Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Seeking approval is often just fear in disguise. Fear of rejection, of standing out, of being seen fully. But the Stoics offer a counterintuitive key. The more you anchor your worth in external validation, the more you become a prisoner of others' whims. Like a ship constantly adjusting its sails to catch every passing breeze, you exhaust yourself going nowhere. Seneca warned his students, what's the point of fearing public disapproval if you're constantly seeking it? Real freedom begins when you stop asking, do they like me? And start asking, am I acting with integrity? Consider social media a modern arena where approval is quantified in likes and shares. Every post becomes a subconscious referendum on your worth. But scroll through your feed right now. How many of those carefully curated moments reflect reality? The Stoics would call this out as a grand illusion, mistaking performance for substance. Epictetus trained his students to test their motives with a simple filter. Are you doing this because it's right or because it's rewarded? That question alone can unravel years of conditioned people-pleasing. So here's the challenge lurking beneath all this. Whose approval have you been overvaluing? A parent whose standards you'll never meet? A boss who moves goalposts? The faceless crowd of societal expectations. Write that name or title down. Now imagine handing them a remote control that dictates your choices. Feel the weight of that surrender. That's what's at stake every time you prioritize opinions over principles. The Stoic alternative isn't rudeness or indifference. It's rooted in something far more powerful: self-possession. Picture a tree in a storm. It doesn't rage against the wind or collapse to please it. It stands firm, bending only enough to avoid breaking. Your convictions can operate the same way. Listen to feedback, but let your values be the trunk that keeps you upright. Because in the end, the only approval that doesn't fade is the kind you grant yourself when you've acted with courage and consistency. The rest is just weather passing through. True leadership doesn't announce itself with titles or corner offices. It radiates through action. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in Rome, wrote in his private journals, "Take care that you are not Caesarified." That startling phrase captures the essence of Stoic leadership, a refusal to let position distort character. While lesser rulers demanded statues and flattery, Marcus saw power as responsibility, not privilege. His daily ritual, asking not, "What can Rome do for me?" but "What does Rome require of me?" that shift from entitlement to service is what separates figureheads from true leaders. Consider two managers. The first thrives on authority, issuing commands from behind a desk, measuring worth by compliance. The second leads from the front, working alongside their team, admitting mistakes and prioritizing growth over ego. Which one inspires loyalty? Which one builds resilience in their people? Stoic leadership recognizes that influence isn't taken, it's earned through consistent example. When Epictetus said, "First tell yourself what kind of person you want to be, then do what you have to do," he wasn't just describing personal growth. He was outlining the blueprint for leading others. The reactive leader operates like a weather vane spinning with every shift in opinion or circumstance. They blame external factors when projects fail. "The market was against us," and hog credit when they succeed. "I turned things around." Contrast this with the Stoic approach, a leader who treats obstacles as training grounds. When a shipment delays production, they don't rant at suppliers, they gather the team to problem solve. When criticism comes, they filter it for truth instead of retaliating. Like a seasoned captain steadying the helm in rough seas, their calm isn't absence of pressure, it's mastery of response. Now zoom into your own life. Leadership isn't contingent on a job description. It emerges wherever you take responsibility for moving things forward. The parent modeling patience during a toddler's tantrum is leading. The coworker who stays solutions-focused in chaotic meetings is leading. Even the stranger who diffuses tension in a crowded line demonstrates leadership through action. The Stoics called this prohesis, the power to choose your response regardless of circumstances. Every time you exercise this, you're not just managing a moment, you're setting a standard others unconsciously follow. Marcus Aurelius faced constant political treachery, yet his journals reveal zero plots for revenge. Instead, he wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." That's leadership distilled, overcoming pettiness not with grand gestures, but with daily choices to elevate rather than diminish. Whether you're guiding a team of 50 or simply navigating your own growth, the principle holds. Stop waiting for a title or perfect conditions. The world needs people who lead from where they stand, not with speeches, but with actions that whisper, "This is how it's done." Procrastination isn't just laziness, it's a crisis of courage. Seneca saw right through this when he wrote, "Life is long if you know how to use it." The irony stings, doesn't it? We complain about lacking time while wasting hours hesitating at the starting line. The Stoics didn't tolerate this paralysis because they understood a brutal truth: delay isn't neutral. Every moment you spend overthinking is a trade. You're swapping the life you could have lived for the comfort of not failing yet. Take the writer who dreams of a novel but never writes the first page. Or the entrepreneur who researches endlessly but never launches. What's really holding them back isn't complexity, it's fear masquerading as preparation. Stoic courage cuts through this illusion. It's not about eliminating doubt, it's about acting despite it. Epictetus trained his students to differentiate between real obstacles and mental ones. A broken leg, that's a physical limit. Fear of embarrassment, that's a story you can rewrite. Here's the reframe: daunting goals aren't monoliths, they're mosaics of tiny, manageable actions. Want to get fit? The first step isn't a 6-month plan. It's lacing up your shoes today. Dream of starting a business. Don't obsess over a business plan. Send one email to a potential mentor. The Stoics called this the discipline of the first move. It's not about the scale of the action. It's about breaking the spell of inertia. Marcus Aurelius didn't wake up as a wise emperor. He became one by writing a single journal entry, then another, then another. Think about your own life. What's the project you've been intellectualizing instead of initiating? The conversation you've rehearsed in your head but haven't had? The skill you've researched but haven't practiced? Right now, strip away the layers of someday and perfect conditions. What's the simplest version of that first step? Not the grand gesture, the bare minimum that gets the wheels turning. Because here's what the Stoics knew: action isn't just the result of courage, it's the source. Every time you choose motion over deliberation, you're not just moving toward a goal. You're proving to yourself that fear doesn't get a veto. Seneca warned, "While we postpone, life speeds by." That's the cost of hesitation, not just lost time, but lost versions of yourself. The person you'd become by publishing that article, asking for that raise, or finally setting that boundary isn't waiting in the future. They're trapped in the present, begging you to take the first step. So here's the challenge: pick one thing you've overcomplicated. Now reduce it to its simplest possible action. Not write a book, write one paragraph. Not get in shape, do 10 push-ups. The momentum will follow, because courage isn't a feeling you wait for, it's a choice you make, one small, stubborn act at a time. Anger is fire, it can raise cities or forge steel. The difference lies not in the heat, but in the hands that wield it. Seneca, in On Anger, didn't demonize the emotion, he dissected it. The problem isn't anger itself, but letting it hijack reason. Picture a boxer stepping into the ring. The crowds roar, the adrenaline. None of that's the enemy. But if they swing wildly, fueled solely by emotion, they'll exhaust themselves by the second round. The greats, they channel that intensity into precision. Every jab, every dodge is calculated. That's the Stoics' approach, transforming raw emotion into directed force. Seneca's warning cuts deep. No plague has cost the human race more. Unchecked anger burns bridges, clouds judgment, and leaves regret in its wake. But righteous anger, the kind that flares at injustice or complacency, that's a signal, not a sentence. Consider the civil rights activists who faced fire hoses and police dogs. Their anger didn't manifest as chaos. It fueled disciplined marches, strategic boycotts, and unwavering resolve. They didn't suppress their fury, they weaponized it with intention. Here's the pivot. Next time your blood boils, pause. Ask, what's this trying to show me? A boundary violated, a value ignored. Anger is often the mind's alarm system, alerting you to something that demands action. The Stoic move isn't to mute the alarm, it's to investigate the cause. A coworker takes credit for your idea. The instinct might be to lash out or seethe silently. But what if instead you channel that energy into documenting your contributions more meticulously, or calmly asserting yourself in the next meeting? The emotion remains, but its expression becomes constructive. Sports offer a masterclass in this alchemy. A soccer player fouled hard doesn't retaliate. They focus on the free kick, using the offense as fuel to score. The anger isn't gone, it's repurposed. Similarly, when you encounter inefficiency at work or injustice in your community, the Stoic question isn't, should I be angry? But what will I build with this fire? Seneca's insight was radical for its time. Anger isn't strength, it's strength's counterfeit. Real power lies in choosing your response. Think of the parent who, instead of yelling at a misbehaving child, kneels to their level and speaks with firm warmth. The message lands not because the anger was suppressed, but because it was refined. So look at the injustices that stir you, the systemic inequalities, the small daily slights. What if that anger wasn't a burden to carry, but energy to harness? The Stoics didn't preach apathy, they practiced clarity. Your emotions aren't the enemy, they're the raw materials. The question is, what will you forge with them? Luck favors the prepared mind, but the Stoics took this further. They saw preparation not as a hopeful wish, but as a sacred duty. Musonius Rufus drilled this into his students. Since every man must die sooner or later, isn't it better to meet death having lived your life with virtue than to seek escape? At first glance, this seems morbid, but the underlying message is electrifying. He wasn't just talking about death, he was talking about readiness. Life's tests don't arrive on schedule. They crash into us when we least expect them. And the difference between those who rise and those who crumble isn't luck. It's the daily discipline of showing up, sharpening your tools, and treating every quiet moment as rehearsal for the storm. Consider the story of Spencer Silver, the chemist who accidentally created a weak adhesive at 3M in 1968. Most would have trashed the failed experiment. But Silver saw potential. Years later, his colleague Art Fry, struggling to keep bookmarks in his hymnal during choir practice, remembered that adhesive. That accident became the post-it note, a billion-dollar innovation born from preparation meeting serendipity. Silver didn't just stumble upon luck, he was primed to recognize it. His mind had been trained to ask, what else could this do? That Stoic readiness in action, treating every outcome, even failure, as raw material for opportunity. The Stoics reframed luck entirely. They didn't deny chance, they just refused to be at its mercy. Seneca wrote, "Luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity." But here's the twist, preparation isn't just about skill, it's about mental posture. An athlete doesn't just train their body, they condition their mind to stay focused under pressure. A musician practices scales so their fingers can improvise when inspiration strikes. Preparation, in the Stoic sense, is the art of making yourself available to luck by removing the internal barriers, doubt, distraction, hesitation, that might blind you to it. So how do you cultivate this readiness? Start by auditing your daily habits. Are you filling your mind with knowledge that expands your vision, or clutter that narrows it? Are you refining skills that could turn a chance encounter into a breakthrough? The inventor tinkering in their garage, the writer journaling every morning, the entrepreneur studying market trends, they're not just passing time. They're building a latticework of competence that luck can cling to. Musonius Rufus trained his students to endure hunger, cold, and discomfort. not to punish them, but to prove they could thrive in adversity. That's the ultimate preparation, knowing that when opportunity collides with chaos, you won't freeze, you'll adapt. Look at your life right now. What's the equivalent of that mental gym? It might be learning a new language, mastering emotional regulation, or simply cultivating the habit of curiosity. Because when luck walks in, whether it's a chance meeting, a sudden problem needing solving, or an idea that won't let go, you won't just hope you're ready. You'll know. Waiting for perfect conditions is like holding your breath until the wind stops. You'll suffocate before it happens. Epictetus saw through this illusion centuries ago when he said, "Circumstances don't make the man, they reveal him." That's the Stoic gut check. The perfect moment isn't something you find. It's something you create by starting where you are. Think about the entrepreneur who delays launching their business until they have a flawless website, or the writer who won't begin their novel until they've researched every possible plot twist. What they're really waiting for isn't readiness, it's immunity from failure. But here's the paradox the Stoics uncovered. The only way to become truly ready is to begin before you feel prepared. Take the story of Sarah Blakely again, cutting the feet off her pantyhose to create the first prototype of Spanx in her apartment. She didn't wait for a factory, investors, or even a business plan. She had an idea and hacked together a crude version with scissors. That's Stoic realism in action, recognizing that conditions will never be flawless, but your resolve can be. Contrast this with the someday dreamer, endlessly polishing their hypothetical masterpiece while the today doer is already on draft 3, learning from real-world feedback. The difference isn't talent or resources, it's the willingness to trade the fantasy of perfection for the messy, rewarding work of progress. Marcus Aurelius faced this daily as emperor. He didn't have the luxury of waiting for calm seas to lead. He had to steer Rome through wars, plagues, and political chaos with the tools at hand. His journals reveal a man who embraced this reality. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. That's the pivot, the perfect time to start that podcast, have that difficult conversation, or pivot your career doesn't arrive with a fanfare. It's hiding in the imperfect present, disguised as good enough. So here's the challenge. What's the thing you've been putting off until the stars align? Fitness until after the holidays, a career change once the economy improves. Now imagine your future self looking back. Will they thank you for waiting, or wish you'd started today, even if it was messy? The Stoics knew the obstacle isn't the lack of ideal circumstances, it's the myth that you need them. Every masterpiece begins as a rough draft. Every empire starts with a single decision. And the most powerful step isn't the one you take when everything's ready. It's the one that makes everything ready. Imagine a sprinter crouched in the starting blocks, muscles coiled, eyes fixed not on the finish line but on the explosive first step. That's the Stoic secret Marcus Aurelius whispered across centuries. The art of living is more like wrestling than dancing, because an artful life requires being prepared to meet sudden and unexpected attacks. Not control over outcomes, mastery over effort. The athlete who obsesses over the medal tenses up, tightens stride, falters, but the one laser focused on form, breath, rhythm. They become the motion itself, unshackled from what's beyond their grip. Here's the paradox most miss. Caring deeply about the work while staying loose around results isn't indifference, it's tactical freedom. Think of a chef crafting a dish. If their worth hinges on every diner's praise, fear creeps into the kitchen, oversalting, second-guessing, pandering to palates. But the chef who treats each ingredient with reverence, each technique with precision, they cook not for applause but for the integrity of the craft. The irony, that's often what earns standing ovations. Modern psychology backs this. Studies on process goals versus outcome goals reveal a stark pattern. Students told to focus solely on test scores perform worse than those directed to engage deeply with material. Why? Because fixation on results hijacks cognitive bandwidth. The Stoics anticipated this 2,000 years earlier. Epictetus framed it as the archer's dilemma. Your job is to shoot straight. The arrow's flight, that's not yours to command. Now apply this to your life. That project you're terrified to launch. What if you shifted focus from will it succeed to am I giving it my best thought, my cleanest effort? The difference isn't subtle. One mindset paralyzes with hypotheticals, the other propels through action. Marcus Aurelius ruled Rome, yet his journals obsess over daily virtues, not empire outcomes. Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be one. So here's the reframe. Detachment from outcomes isn't apathy, it's the ultimate professionalism. A surgeon doesn't guarantee a patient's survival, they guarantee meticulous technique. A writer can't control bestseller lists, but they can honor each sentence. The work becomes the compass, not the weather. Try this today. Pick a goal where fear of failure's been whispering. Now strip away the fantasy of guaranteed results. What's left? The raw, beautiful act of showing up. The reps, the drafts, the iterations. That's where your power lies, not in the trophy, but in the sweat that makes it possible. Because here's what the Stoics knew. When you fall in love with the process, outcomes stop being finish lines. They become mile markers in a lifelong race only you get to run. Seneca once wrote, "As is a tale, so is life. Not how long it is, but how good it is what matters." That piercing insight cuts to the core of Stoic action. Movement without purpose is just motion, not progress. Picture two workers in an office. One frantically answers emails, attends back-to-back meetings, and leaves exhausted but unfulfilled. The other completes fewer tasks, but each one aligns with a personal mission: to create, to solve, to build something meaningful. Both are busy, but only one is truly productive. The difference isn't effort, it's intention. Purpose isn't some vague, inspirational concept in Stoicism. It's the fuel for assertive action. Think of a ship without a destination. It can have the strongest engine, the most skilled crew, but without a compass, it's just burning resources adrift. Your energy works the same way. Scattered effort drains you, directed effort amplifies you. Marcus Aurelius didn't just go through the motions of ruling Rome. He anchored every decision in service to justice and wisdom. That clarity turned obligation into opportunity. Here's the modern trap. We confuse motion with meaning. The endless hustle, the glorification of busy. It's all a distraction from the harder question: why? Why this career path? Why this relationship? Why these daily habits? Seneca warned, there is nothing the busy man is less busied with than living. Without purpose, action becomes a shield against self-reflection, a way to outrun the emptiness of doing things that don't truly matter to you. Try this exercise today. Grab paper and divide it into 2 columns, what I do and why I do it. Fill the first with your daily routines, work tasks, social commitments, even leisure activities. Then, in the second column, dig deeper. Is that side gig fueling a creative passion, or just padding your bank account out of fear? Are those late nights networking genuinely enriching, or are they avoiding the quiet discomfort of solitude? The gaps between these columns reveal where your energy is being invested versus where it's being wasted. Consider the entrepreneur who pivots from a lucrative but soulless job to start a modest bakery. On paper, it might seem irrational: less money, more risk. But when your why is rooted in joy, in craftsmanship, in community, the metrics of success shift. Profit matters, but it's no longer the sole compass. That's the power of purpose. It doesn't just guide action. It transforms how you perceive challenges. Setbacks become experiments. Long hours feel like investments. Now look at your own life. Does your current hustle align with your deepest purpose, or has it become a series of motions you've forgotten how to question? The Stoics weren't against hard work, they were against unconscious living. Your time, your energy, your attention are currencies. Spend them where they yield not just external rewards, but internal resonance. Because when action springs from purpose, fatigue fades into focus. What feels like effort to others becomes flow for you. Seneca's letters return to one theme again and again. We don't lack time, we lack direction. The person who knows their why can endure almost any how. So ask yourself, not in the abstract, but concretely, what's the thread connecting your daily actions to the life you want to look back on without regret? That thread isn't just a motivator, it's your lifeline. Boundaries aren't walls, they're the gates to your sovereignty. Epictetus put it bluntly, what's mine to control? My choices, my actions, my responses, the rest, not my circus, not my monkeys. That's the Stoic foundation of boundaries, a clear-eyed distinction between what you own and what you don't. Think of it like property lines. You wouldn't let a neighbor pave a parking lot over your garden. Yet how often do we let others trample our time, energy, or peace of mind? The difference between Stoic self-respect and selfishness lies in intent. Selfishness hoards at others' expense. Self-respect preserves your capacity to show up fully for what matters. Take the colleague who constantly dumps last-minute tasks on your desk. Without boundaries, resentment builds like pressure in a boiler, but reacting with aggression, do your own work. Adjust trades one form of dysfunction for another. The Stoic alternative, graceful firmness. I can't take this on today. Let's plan ahead next time. No apology, no guilt, just a clear line drawn with civility. This isn't about being harsh, it's about being honest. Because here's the paradox, when you stop saying yes out of obligation, your yes gains real weight. People begin to trust your word because they know it isn't diluted by hidden resentment. Epictetus trained his students to practice this in real time. When someone interrupted their studies with idle chatter, they didn't feign interest or snap rudely. They'd say, "I'd love to talk later, but right now my focus belongs here." Simple, direct, unapologetic. That's the art of the graceful no. Acknowledging the request while honoring your priorities. Modern life bombards us with demands masquerading as opportunities. The committee seat that eats your weekends, the family gathering that drains you, even the harmless scroll through social media that bleeds into hours. Every unguarded yes is a silent no to something else, your rest, your growth, your peace. So here's the litmus test. Where is your lack of boundaries quietly draining your power to act? Maybe it's the friend who treats your couch like a therapy couch, unloading drama without reciprocity, or the boss who texts at midnight, blurring work lifelines. Even the internal boundary you failed to set, like skipping workouts because something always comes up. Your energy is finite. Every time you let someone or something cross a line without consent, you're not just giving away time. You're surrendering agency. The Stoic Reframe is liberating. Boundaries aren't rejection, they're redirection. Imagine a riverbank without strong edges. The water spreads thin, becoming a stagnant swamp. But with clear banks, it gains the force to carve canyons. Your focus works the same way. When you stop leaking energy into what doesn't serve you, you channel it into what does. That's why Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." The strength isn't in controlling others' actions. It's in mastering your own responses. Try this today. Pick one area where your boundaries feel porous. Role-play the conversation you've been avoiding, not with confrontation, but with calm clarity. I can't commit to that. I need to prioritize X right now. Notice the fear that arises, the guilt, the what if they're upset. Then ask the Stoic question, is their potential discomfort more important than your integrity? Boundaries aren't just about saying no to others. They're about saying yes to the person you're becoming. And that's not selfishness, it's stewardship. Marcus Aurelius led legions through the chaos of war with a principle that seems contradictory at first glance: unwavering conviction paired with radical adaptability. Picture a Roman general not just poring over battle plans but burning them, not out of recklessness but readiness. When barbarian tribes disrupted supply lines or weather scattered his troops, he didn't cling to the original strategy like a lifeline. He treated plans as provisional, principles as permanent. The art of living is more like wrestling than dancing, he wrote, because wrestling demands constant adjustment to unseen forces. That's the heart of Stoic adaptability, holding your mission sacred while treating your methods as disposable. Modern goal setting often worships rigidity. We fixate on 5-year plans, obsess over benchmarks, and call quitting failure. But the Stoics saw a flaw in this. Life isn't a chessboard where pieces move predictably. It's a stormy sea where clinging to a sinking raft can drown you faster than adjusting course. Compare two entrepreneurs. One slaves over a failing business model because it's the plan, while the other pivots, preserving their vision of serving customers but changing how. Both show grit, but only one demonstrates Stoic agility. This isn't about abandoning goals, it's about upgrading them. Think of a tree in a hurricane. Rigid oaks snap, bamboo bends, loses leaves but stands. Marcus faced this constantly. His journals reveal a man who prepared meticulously for battles, then tossed the playbook when reality intervened. When Germanic tribes ambushed his troops near the Danube, he didn't double down on outdated tactics. He adapted, using terrain, diplomacy, even retreat when necessary, all while keeping Rome's safety as his true north. Here's the litmus test for your own life. What's the difference between a target and a purpose? Losing 20 pounds is a target. Valuing health is a purpose. One can crumble when life interrupts, the other finds new paths, maybe swapping gym sessions for home workouts during travel, or choosing sleep over late-night cravings. Systems adapt, dogma suffocates, so look at your current struggle. The career path that no longer fits, the relationship straining under old expectations. The habit you keep failing at. Ask the Stoic question, is this the plan or the principle? Maybe the job isn't about the title but using your skills meaningfully. Maybe the relationship needs new rhythms, not abandonment. The moment you separate the what from the how, you reclaim power, because Stoic adaptability isn't surrender, it's strategy in motion. Like a river finding cracks in rock, it's not the water's persistence that carves canyons, it's its willingness to change direction without losing force. Epictetus saw right through the illusion of overnight transformation when he said, "You are what you repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act but a habit." That razor-sharp truth cuts to the core of Stoic power. Your character isn't forged in grand declarations, but in the quiet, relentless repetition of daily choices. Think of a blacksmith shaping steel. One strike of the hammer does nothing, but 1,000 strikes, that's when the metal bends to the craftsman's will. Your habits work the same way. Every morning you choose discipline over distraction. Every evening you reflect instead of numbing out. You're not just passing time, you're sculpting your soul. Consider the morning ritual of Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in the ancient world. Before dawn, while Rome still slept, he'd light a lamp and open his journal, not to plan battles or draft decrees, but to realign his mind. His writings reveal a man who started each day by reminding himself of fundamental truths. I will meet ungrateful, violent, treacherous people today. Not to complain, but to prepare. Nature gave me the virtues to meet them, not as a boast, but as armor. This wasn't passive reflection, it was mental training. By confronting life's harsh realities head-on before they arrived, he immunized himself against surprise and resentment. The result, a leader who could face riots, plagues, and betrayals without losing his moral compass. Now contrast that with the modern morning scroll, checking emails before your feet hit the floor, absorbing the world's chaos before your mind has a chance to fortify itself. The difference isn't just productivity, it's psychological sovereignty. The Stoics understood that the first hour of the day is the rudder that steers the ship. Win the morning and you've already tilted the odds in your favor. But here's where most people stumble. They mistake intensity for consistency. A 5 a.m. Wake up for 1 week isn't a ritual, it's a spasm. Real transformation comes from the drip, drip, drip of small actions repeated long after the initial motivation fades. Take the habit of cold showers. The first time is a shock. The 10th time is uncomfortable, but the 100th time, your relationship with discomfort has fundamentally changed. You've rewired your nervous system to interpret challenge not as a threat, but as an invitation to grow. So let's make this brutally practical. Pick one keystone habit, something so simple it feels almost trivial. 5 minutes of journaling, 20 push-ups, reading 10 pages of philosophy. The scale doesn't matter, the consistency does, because here's the secret Epictetus knew. Discipline isn't something you have, it's something you prove to yourself, 1 rep at a time. Every day you follow through, you're not just completing a task, you're accumulating evidence that you're the kind of person who keeps promises to yourself. And that's where unstoppable action begins, not with Herculean effort, but with the quiet confidence of knowing your habits have your back. When crisis hits, you won't need to search for courage. It'll already be there, woven into your neural pathways by 1,000 small acts of showing up. The writer who's filled notebooks for years doesn't fear the blank page. The leader who's practiced humility daily doesn't crumble under criticism. The athlete who's trained in empty gyms shines when the stadium lights come on. So ask yourself, what's the one habit that, if practiced daily for a year, would render you unrecognizably stronger? Not a dramatic overhaul, a single, steadfast action. Because the Stoics didn't build empires in a day. They built them 1 brick, 1 choice, 1 dawn at a time. And the beautiful truth, you hold that same power every time you decide what to do with this hour, this moment, this breath. Silence isn't empty, it's loaded with potential. Seneca nailed this when he wrote, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so we may listen more than we speak." That's not just etiquette, it's tactical. Picture a chess grandmaster pausing before a critical move. The pause isn't hesitation, it's calculation. The same principle applies to life's conflicts. A reactive outburst might feel powerful in the moment, like slamming a door, but strategic silence, that's the equivalent of quietly locking the door and pocketing the key. One creates noise, the other creates leverage. Think about the last heated argument you witnessed. The person who shouted loudest rarely walked away with respect. Now consider the one who listened, let the tension hang, and then responded with measured words. That's Stoic silence in action, a deliberate gap between stimulus and response where wisdom grows. Marcus Aurelius modeled this as emperor. Amidst political betrayals, he'd retreat to his journals instead of lashing out. By the time he acted, his moves were surgical, not emotional. Here's where most people stumble. They confuse silence with passivity. A Stoic's quiet isn't submission, it's a coiled spring. Take Nelson Mandela's 27 years in prison. He could have fueled rage with fiery speeches to his jailers. Instead, he studied their language, learned their fears, and conserved his energy. When he finally spoke, every word carried the weight of decades of restraint. That's the power of silence compounded over time. Now flip the script to everyday life. The coworker who takes credit for your idea, the relative who pushes your buttons. The reflex is to fire back, to win the moment. But what if you let their words hang in the air just a beat longer? That pause does two things. It starves their provocation of oxygen, and it gives you space to choose your next move, not just react. Seneca warned, anger, if not restrained, is frequently more hurtful to us than the injury that provokes it. Silence is the restraint that turns anger into strategy. Try this experiment today. Next time someone baits you, whether it's a backhanded compliment or outright criticism, practice the Stoic pause. Count to 3 in your head. Notice the urge to defend, justify, or counterattack. Then ask, will responding now serve my long-term goals or just my short-term ego? Often, the most powerful action isn't adding more words to the fire, it's letting the silence reveal the other person's instability. History's most decisive leaders understood this. When Julius Caesar crossed the Rubicon, he didn't give a speech first. He acted, then let the world scramble to interpret his silence. Steve Jobs was infamous for his pauses in meetings, unnerving gaps where others would rush to fill the void. What made these moments potent wasn't the absence of sound, but the presence of intention. So where in your life are you speaking too soon? The negotiation where you reveal your hand early, the argument where you interrupt instead of absorbing. Stoic silence isn't about muting yourself. It's about mastering the space between thought and expression, because sometimes the loudest statement isn't a shout at all. It's the quiet certainty of someone who knows action speaks clearer than words. The monuments we build in stone crumble, the fortunes we amass fade, but the echoes of our actions ripple through time long after we're gone. Marcus Aurelius, who ruled the mightiest empire on earth, scribbled this haunting reminder in his private journal. You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. Not as morbid fixation, but as liberation and urgent call to weigh each choice against the indelible mark it leaves. Think of the Roman aqueducts still standing after 2,000 years. What's remarkable isn't the engineering. It's that generations of laborers hold each stone believing in something beyond their lifespan. That's the Stoic secret to legacy, acting as if eternity is watching, even when you won't be there to see the results. Now contrast this with our modern obsession with instant validation likes, retweets, quarterly earnings. The Stoics would call this tragic myopia. Like children building sandcastles at low tide, we pour energy into what the next wave will erase. But history remembers different builders. Consider the Japanese concept of miyabi, where craftsmen spend months perfecting the unseen underside of a wooden joint. Why? Because integrity isn't conditional on audience. When a 14th century monk painstakingly copied manuscripts by candlelight, he wasn't imagining viral fame. He was preserving wisdom for readers unborn. That's legacy in its purest form, action divorced from applause. Here's the pivot. Your daily choices are time capsules being buried for future diggers. The patience you show your child today becomes their parenting style tomorrow. The integrity you demonstrate in a trivial business decision sets precedent for colleagues you'll never meet. Even the trash you don't litter. It's not just about clean sidewalks, it's voting for what kind of world you believe should endure. Marcus Aurelius knew this intimately. While other emperors erected statues of themselves, he wrote private notes that would one day ignite millions. His power wasn't in controlling how he'd be remembered, but in steadfastly doing what deserved remembrance. So let's make this uncomfortably personal. That project you're half-heartedly phoning in, the grudge you're nursing, the talent you're too afraid to develop. These aren't just present tense concerns, they're brushstrokes on a canvas future generations will study. Archaeologists of the 22nd century won't care about your job title or net worth. They'll look for evidence of how you loved, what you built, where you stood when it mattered. The Stoics measured life not in years, but in virtuous acts multiplied across time. Your great-grandchildren may never know your name, but they'll live with the consequences of your courage or cowardice today. The final Stoic question isn't whether you'll be remembered, but what you'll leave worth remembering. Not marble epitaphs, but living wisdom passed through choices. Not your face on coins, but your fingerprint on the moral arc of your community. So as the sun sets on this discussion, let it rise on your next decisive act, one that would make your ancestors nod in respect and your descendants stand taller in pride. Because legacy isn't what's carved in stone. It's what's etched in the ongoing story of humanity by those bold enough to act beyond their own expiration date. From the disciplined clarity of the dichotomy of control to the fiery resolve of Amor Fati, one thread binds all Stoic action. True power never comes from bending the world to your will, but from mastering your response to it. Think of a blacksmith shaping iron. The metal doesn't yield because the hammer demands it, but because heat and force transform its very nature. So it is with the Stoic path. Every principle we've explored, boundaries as gateways, obstacles as fuel, silence as strategy, isn't about controlling life's chaos. It's about forging an inner resilience that no storm can shake. Marcus Aurelius didn't stop the barbarians at Rome's gates by wishing them away. He met them with a mind trained through decades of dawn journaling, nightly reflection, and relentless self-accountability. Consider the archer Epictetus loved to reference. They can't command the wind or guarantee the bullseye, but they can steady their breath, align their posture, and release the arrow with perfect intent. That's the essence of Stoic assertiveness, focusing your entire being on what's yours to influence, then acting with unwavering precision. External results may vary, but internal sovereignty remains unbroken. Now here's the challenge waiting in this moment. Knowledge untested is just theory. The Stoics didn't write to fill libraries, they wrote to ignite action. So don't just admire these principles, seize one. Today, maybe it's the 5-minute morning ritual that anchors your day, or the single boundary you've hesitated to set. Perhaps it's the difficult conversation you've rehearsed in your head but haven't voiced. Growth doesn't ask for grand gestures, it asks for the first step. Epictetus, the former slave who became a beacon of wisdom, left us this battle cry: no man is free who is not master of himself. That mastery isn't found in lofty ideals, it's built in the gritty, glorious work of daily practice. So tell me in the comments, which Stoic principle will you wield first? The power isn't in your answer. It's in the action that follows. The world doesn't need more spectators. It needs unshakable doers. Will you be one? The choice, as always, is yours.